So we're at Kendal Mountain Festival with none other than Will Bosi. Will, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
So we're going to be talking about your past, present and future, just so you're aware.
Okay, yeah.
Begin with the past. So let's start off with, how did you first get into climbing?
Yeah, kind of a bit of a random one, but my sister who's a bit older, was in the Scouts or one of those variants, I guess. And they took them for a day to the local climbing wall, Alien Rock. And I remember her just talking about it and how amazing it was. So I was like, well, I want to do that. Like, she's getting to do that, I want to do that. So I just kept pestering my parents till eventually my dad was like, right, okay, and he took me. And this was when I was 6, I think. So I went and just did some top roping or something, and I just absolutely loved it. And then, yeah, just kept asking to go back and got put into the kids club that they were running, and yeah, just sort of went from there.
And so Alien Rock, where you started, that's got quite a traditional climbing wall, isn't it? It's got lead, it's got a bit of bouldering.
Yeah.
But the wall I guess I've associated you with is its partner wall, Alien 2, which is basically, it was quite ahead of its time, I think, insofar as it was kind of a bouldering wall, but it was not just a bouldering wall, it was like a room with more boards than you've ever seen. And that's, I think, it sounds like that was where you lived, basically, from when you were kind of, I don't know what age onwards.
Yeah, I guess probably, maybe a bit younger, but I guess 13 was maybe when you're allowed to go by yourself. So before that point, I went with my mum to that wall. Yeah, it was, it's closed now, but I think it was one of the first bouldering walls in the country.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I know, sad times. And yeah, it's just ridiculous, because it was, basically just a centre of different boards, and each board was joined by a featured arete, and each board had features and pockets as well in it. So there was never even that much space to put holds. So whenever there was a reset, the holds would just go back in the same place because there's only a couple bolts. But it just meant everything was just, essentially
Which
that.
Kind of makes it sound shit, but it was glorious.
It was amazing. It's one of those walls, because it's been replaced with a new boulder wall. And when it was getting replaced, everyone was so excited, can't wait. And we all just kind of look back you know what? I really miss Alien Rock too.
It's in and amongst, obviously, climbing walls have obviously come on. They're facilities now, aren't they?
Yeah.
But the style of climbing within a lot of climbing walls doesn't necessarily replicate what you need for the outdoors, whereas that board style of climbing does. And I guess also that board style of climbing, Alien 2 shaped the climber you've become.
Yeah. Literally, for climbing outside, it was just perfect. Just having every sort of angle of board, it just replicates all kinds of outdoor, especially hard bouldering. I remember when I climbed my first 8B plus boulder, Monk Life, at Kyle in the Woods, it took 3 sessions. And the session after sending that, I sent my project that I had at Alien 2, which was on a similar angle of wall, and had taken 3 months. And I remember being wow, it's going to be at least 8B plus. And it's just, the training on those boards was just so perfect, I think, for climbing outside.
And so up to that point, I guess you've been climbing, primarily, I guess, for fun. I don't even know, did you train at that point in time?
Yeah, so the first couple of years just for fun, and then I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I ended up going to the YCS Youth Climbing Series, I guess Bricks it was called at the time, and then sort of got into the competitions, and I started getting a little bit of coaching and training more at RAFO, so doing going into the sort of sport climbing and doing more lead. And then I had some training plans and some coaching every week, I guess on Sundays or something. I don't 100% remember. And then as the years went on, got more serious. When I was climbing at Alien Rock 2 mostly in my sort of teens, I was following a training program from Tom Randall, and it was pretty much every session I was going and training, but essentially it just would stay there the whole time, even if I had training or not to do, because you'd go there, and this sounds really bad looking back, but I remember some sessions you'd be so demotivated to climb on all the same problems you've been climbing on, so you're I'm just going to campus board. You'd have a 3-hour campus board session, and then at the end of the session you're should we climb a bit? Yeah, I guess we should. But
in the session you were a part of last night, the future of hard bouldering, I think you said you just went in there from basically finishing school to closing.
Yeah.
And I guess that must have given you a seriously solid base.
Yeah, so finished school at 3:30, I guess, walk home, which was 10 minutes, change, and then walk to climb wall, be at the climb wall for 4 to 4:30, and then stay there till it kind of closes at 10, and then go home and have food. And it's I did that a lot of nights a week, and I think that helped a lot.
So I guess we mentioned Tom Randall, and I guess this is pre-lattice.
Yeah.
I guess the next phase of your climbing career, in inverted commas, that I then think of is the Rainshadow era, because that felt like it was a breakthrough moment for you. I think you were around 17 at the time. Yeah. I was there. I think I was there when you were trying it, actually. I remember you were climbing with Neil McNair in the world's worst weather. But what I remember about that, aside from your unrelenting sight to get on a route in monumentally poor conditions, was that you'd been working this replica, which was a really new thing, at least for me at the time, I think for the climbing world. You'd been working this replica, and you went up and basically just cruised through the boulder problem crux. And it was then I sort of realised that, like, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And when largely coincided with when the route was dry.
Yeah.
But do you want to tell us a bit about Rainshadow and what that meant to you at the time as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was my first 9A. It made me, at the time, the youngest Brit to do 9A as well. And it was like a huge step up and sort of milestone. I don't think I'd even climbed 8C plus at that moment. I'd like just focused purely on going for the 9A. And yeah, it felt like the first time I'd like dedicated to something outside. And it was, it felt all like doing it. I was like, whoa, like, because it only took, I think, 8 sessions. I was like, wow, like, I looked at all these other routes that I'd like previously just written off, and I was like, oh, maybe they're possible too. And it kind of opened my eyes a lot in the training. Yeah, because I had a session with Tom Randall down in Sheffield out in his garden, and he had got Steve McClure to set a replica for when he was round testing, so that when I went round I could try the replica, and then so that I could then take that back to Edinburgh and set a similar one there. And I tried to copy Steve's as best I could. And I remember that first day, the session when I got on the route, I mean, I felt quite strong, but I just remember thinking, Steve's replica was nothing like the route. Like, I was like, it's really, like, I was shocked because he spent so much time on it. So then
replica.
So, I mean, like, the vague moves were there, but, like, I was like, no, this is all wrong. So I went back to Edinburgh and then completely changed mine. And I think it was way better. And then, I was doing, like, circuit training, so doing, like, 20-move circuit into the boulder replica that I'd set. And then, when I came back down, when it was, like, good weather, it was, like, the difference was huge.
And that, I mean, at least from an observer's point of view, it felt like things changed for you at that point. It felt like, one, you were in the public eye because you just climbed Rainshadow. And I think yours was, if not the quickest, then one of the quickest ascents to date at that point. And you were a kid, So it was quite a moment. And I guess, like, how did that change things for you in terms of your attitude?
I mean, for the attitude, it's hard to say because I guess it was a while ago. But I definitely, like, as was just what I mentioned, definitely, like, mindset, it changed a lot in thinking that, okay, like, that went way quicker than I thought it would. I didn't actually think I'd be able to climb this that long ago, and maybe I should go and try these other routes. So then I remember, because I focused next was on trying Hubble, which was
very different to Rainshadow.
Yeah, and coming from Edinburgh training at Alien 2, it was like Malk Smith was for sure the hero, and like his 3 big achievements were Monk Life, which was the boulder I'd repeated earlier, Hubble, like repeating Hubble, I suppose, when he was 19?
Young.
Yeah, I think 18 or 19, and then 158 on the Alien 2 campus board. And 158 doesn't sound that impressive.
The big 3.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, 159's a big one. But the campus board there, the spacing was ridiculous. And no one's ever done 159. They kept the spacing, like, in the rungs to the new wall as well. So if you want to go try it, you can. But still, Daniel Smith's getting close. He's touched 9, but no one's done it. So they were the big 3. And Hubble was the last one to do. So then I was like, well, maybe I could do that, and I was like, focused on that.
Will, what I like about your approach is that we've talked about Monk Life, classy boulder problem, Hubble, well, maybe not classy route, but like it's a route, it's a classic.
Yeah.
And then 158 at Alien 2.
Yeah.
You are not afraid of getting psyched about a fundamentally shit objective.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is why I've been spending a lot of time in the Czech Republic trying Adam Ondra's Terra Nova Traverse, because even at that crag, it's by far probably one of the worst things there. You've got all these other boulders that are really good. You've got these routes you can look up at that are actually really good. And then I'm just there, try this, like, pretty bad traverse where I'm pretty sure at one point you're going downwards, like, I I get super motivated by strength aspects, I think, of challenges. So when it comes to something like 158 on the camps board, or just these, it doesn't have to be the best line or the best moves, I guess. Like if I know it's hard, it's going to really push me, I get really psyched.
So another thing which it's worth touching on actually is like your comp climbing career. I guess you obviously competed as a junior, you competed as senior. Obviously highs and lows throughout that.
Yeah.
What have you taken away now having retired from comps? What are both the positives and the negatives? Because it seems like it is really polarized. It's like when you're going well and you're winning, everything's great. But bloody hell, it takes a toll.
Yeah, it's really hard. And there's so many factors that we could go into, and I could probably ramble on for the next hour talking about this. But I think there's like one or two main differences, I guess, between comps and outdoors. Where comps, you're just essentially, you're trying to climb the best that you can climb on the day, but you're just trying to climb better than everyone else, because at the end of the day, you're going there to win. And it's very different to climbing outside, because in a comp, you could, get halfway up the route. I remember the first World Cup final I made, I fell off like halfway or a third of the way up the semi-final, and I made the finals. It seemed completely ridiculous. On that route, because I was so boxed, I was like, oh, there's no way I'm making finals. So there was this campus pocket move where you face out, and I just remember I was like pulling silly faces to the crowd, because I was like, oh, I'm just enjoying my time because I've done terribly. And then I felt like, when I saw the result, I was like, oh man, I look like a right idiot now. Whereas on the routes, I feel like that sort of element's taken out, and the only thing that matters is getting to the top. You can fall off the last move, it counts kind of for nothing. So I like having the full completion goal more in the climbing perspective.
You've got to be an all-rounder, like a really well-rounded climber. And even then, there's a large percentage of almost, as you say, luck on the day. It's just you read something wrong or just foot slip, and then it's all gone. Whereas, anyway, let's maybe focus on that before we go on to becoming more specialist, because that comes post-retirement. But what did you think to becoming the all-rounder and also that high-pressure, high-stakes environment? Enjoyable or weirdly not enjoyable?
It's, again, very different from the enjoyment side, if we go for that first. Competing in the Chamonix final, where you've got a crowd of 10 to 15,000 people watching, is the sort of feeling and the atmosphere is just completely
intoxicating. It's like a drug. I can imagine.
Literally. It is completely impossible to replicate, I feel like, without probably something like that. And it's just absolutely amazing. And you feel like you're performing, you don't feel like you're climbing. It's weirdly different. Whereas obviously you're never going to have that outside, but from a personal rewards feeling, I think topping something outside is very different, where you've put all your training, all your energy, and everything has to come together perfectly, and it feels like performance rather than the sort of performing for people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's weirdly different, but the trying to do the all round is I still don't specialize fully. I do like the all round, but not to the same extent, where you're training things. A lot of the competition style moves now, the sort of big coordinations and the weird slabs of the volumes, I just don't really enjoy that much.
It ain't a board.
Yeah, it's not what I like to do in climbing. With climbing, I think what's amazing is it's kind of different for everyone. What everyone likes in it is completely different, and you can go out and do whatever you want. And that's what's really fun, whereas the comps, you're forced into doing what's been given to you. And, it is a different challenge, and that's the point, I guess, it's a challenge. But it's weird where I remember the European Championships combined in Moscow 2020, I guess, come out semi-final and I flash every boulder. Come out in the final and I don't top any of them. And it's just how does it just swap around so drastically, just depending on what they set?
It strikes me like such high highs and such low lows. And I guess maybe to move on from that, it feels like since you've retired, retired sounds ridiculous, you're 24, but since you've retired, it just feels like you've been having the time of your life. And I guess that feels like it's sort of culminated in Burden of Dreams. And we probably won't, I feel like we've talked a lot about Burden of Dreams.
Yeah, probably.
But in a way, the thing I'd like to ask you about burden, I suppose, is, and maybe Alphane alongside that, is that I guess like looking back to Rainshadow when you climbed your first like French 9A, climbing those font 9As, and particularly burden, because that was the font 9A. And not only was it the font 9A, but it was the one that everyone had tried and nobody had succeeded on. Whereas Alphane had a bit of a run of a sense. In comparison, it's a slightly different take. But how do you feel now, having done that? Is it the same as it was with Rainshadow, where you're like, oh man, if I can do this, then...
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, burden, Rainshadow was sort of from like a fairly young age. I was thinking, you know, maybe if I put all my time and I train, like it is potentially achievable. Whereas burden was something that always felt removed, even until like, even in January this year when I'd like had my first session of Epic, I was like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like it felt so removed from something I'd ever do. So it's
burden of dreams. Yeah, it's almost the unachievable pinnacle.
It's similar, but like on a completely different scale. Like doing that was completely mind blowing. And it's still one of those things, it definitely made me think like, whoa, maybe like it is possible to do like all the boulders I've looked at and thought that I wanted to, and maybe it's possible to actually push it further, which is something I never thought I'd be the one like even saying or thinking about doing. So
you've weirdly found yourself at the forefront of world-class bouldering, and also at a time when it feels like as well there is real momentum, like something that came up again in the session. I'm going to keep referencing the session. None of you have seen it, but you'll get some of the best bits here. It sounded like you were mortified that no one was live streaming their attempts currently, because there's a team out there at the moment, and it strikes me like this is mostly just because you're rooting. It feels like you're rooting for them basically, and you want to see how they're getting on because of a curiosity based on the fact that it felt like through the live streams you did that, I mean, I'm sure every session wasn't fun, but you seem to just be smiling so much throughout.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see from the film that came out, there's definitely was one or two sessions weren't so fun, but I mean, in general, have a pretty good time when I'm climbing. I think most people enjoy climbing, and I get so psyched and motivated watching other people and just like seeing what's going on. And yeah, there's a team of 4 really strong guys out there at the moment, and at least I know of one like photographer that's out there as well. So, you know, there's a lot that they could do a setup for sure. And I think it'd be so interesting, and so many people would be psyched to see like the 4 of them having a session on burden. And I know, like, for myself, I'd be so psyched to watch that. It'd be so cool.
So of the 5 9As, and let's just say there's 5 9As for simplicity, you've done 2.
Yeah.
With the remaining 3, the way I'll start this, which one do you want to try the most? And my second question, which one do you think you're most likely to succeed on?
Okay, yeah, so this is different. So the one I'm most psyched for is Return of the Sleepwalker. I've actually just started planning a trip out to go in like sort of mid-January next year, and I'm like so motivated. It looks absolutely incredible, but I don't think it's going to suit me that well. Like, in general, I don't climb much in sandstone, and it's got like big slopers and huge moves, which isn't really my style. So I think it's going to be a huge challenge, but I'm really psyched to try that. And at least it's got the stand start, which is obviously easier, so I have like an intermediate goal. I think the one that would suit me the best, though, out of the remaining 3 would be Megatron, so the other one in America, because it's very crimpy undercuts and heel hooks, which is basically the only thing it's really missing is big drop knees. Other than that, it's like absolutely sounds perfect for me, and it's long, which ties into a lot of the time that I've spent sport climbing, so I think like Alphane would suit me really well. So, I mean, in the dream scenario, I ascend Sleepwalker, and then later in the year when the snow melts a bit, I could head back out and go and try Megatron, but I don't think I'll have the time for that really.
And I guess perhaps the one, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say that Sudan Seoul, Big Island, sit.
Yeah.
That is probably the one that suits you the least. That is also one that seems to be divided between Font 9A and Font 8C+. Any plans to go and fondle the holds on that?
Yeah, definitely. I had one session before the sit was done. I looked at the Big Island one session when I was driving through to Spain a couple of years ago, and I remember thinking like it was going to be really hard, but it felt achievable to do at least the top part. But that was trying the sort of original beta, whereas now a new beta where you're more turned sideways in your toe hook, I think would suit me better. So I'm actually quite excited to go back and try it at some point. But I do not like wearing the knee pads to climb. It's so uncomfortable. So I'm not looking forward to trying the star.
Have you considered though not using a knee pad and instead using a book?
A really friction-proof book, yeah.
And what book would you use if given the
Probably Knowledge of Sandpaper or something like that, so or rubber so it sticks, yeah. No, I mean, I definitely just use the knee pad, I think. I'm not about using the book as well. Like, so that's a whole other issue.
There's a whole separate video to be done on that. And I guess when we're talking as well about, Sudan Sol has been 9A, or originally graded 9A, and then subsequent percents have blended between soft 9A and 8C+. On the note of that, Alphane, you seem to do that quite quickly. Any thoughts on that? Because what are your thoughts?
So I feel like I still need a bit more time to be 100% certain, but the way I always see it with the grades is like 8C plus should just be a big step up from 8C. Like it should be noticeable, because the grades have a range. You can have soft, solid, and hard. So for it to go from hard to the next soft, it has to be like a noticeable step. And then obviously from 8C plus to 9A, it has to be a big step. And Alphane didn't take that long, and I think time should be a big factor. As long as you're taking the time that you're using the right beta, and it's not like this took 40 days, but 39 of them I was trying it a really bad way. As long as you're like sensible and you think about it like that, I think the time does matter. And it's hard, I think it's just hard to imagine that I can climb the top level of bouldering in that little time. It doesn't seem right, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's an awkward one to factor in as well, because you're obviously climbing the best you have ever climbed. You are stronger, you're also on a roll, which actually counts for a lot as well, if you're sort of like ticking things off quickly. But it seems, at least from the outside looking in, again, couch opinion of a guy who's never going to climb Font 8A, let alone Font 9A. Obviously, Burden took a lot more time. Alphane seemed more trivial in comparison.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I need more time to be certain, but from spending a lot more time in the Czech Republic, trying Onras, especially Terra Nova, it's like, that is a huge step up from 8C. Is that what an 8C plus should look like? Is it like a hard 8C plus, or is it actually hard enough to be 9A? And I feel like I need to go around, this is why I'm excited to go to America, and actually try some other grades around the world, because from some of the stuff that other boulders, not about Alphane, that I've done, especially in like Switzerland, definitely feels like there's differences in the grades between areas as well, and I feel like it should be more consistent. So.
And grades are just estimations and opinions. They're not an exact science.
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
And it's no slight as well on the first ascensionist. If your opinion differs, it shouldn't be that person. I'm like, again, it feels like quite a wholesome crew that you climb with in that regard.
Yeah, it's really nice.
But I guess in terms of, we've talked about the remaining 9As. When it comes to then finding and developing your own boulder problems, I know you've been up in Scotland looking around, but it's tough to find the next big project. Yeah,
finding something like Burden is really hard. Because that's a sort of, I mean, I don't want to just do another Burden, but something similar to that would be the dream. And it is weirdly hard to find a steep face with just enough holds that it goes and is absolutely desperate, but not either like one too many or one too few. And even just finding a straight face like that is desperate. So I think it's going to be a real challenge.
I guess like finding one in the UK as well.
Yeah, it will be hard.
Limited amount of ground that we have. It's a tough task, isn't it? So I guess the next one as well is Will, whatever your name is. So the next one is Will Bosi in the future.
Yeah.
We've joked about the fact that it says that you're a sport climber on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll return to sport climbing?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, what I've been like most psyched for this year is Excalibur, Stefano Gazolfi's 9B plus out in Arco, and I had booked for like a month trip to go out, and it was just pouring with rain. Like it was just wet every day, so ended up, that's why I bailed and went back to Czech Republic. But I'm hopefully going to go back in the next month and try
when it stops raining.
Yeah, and try and finish that off. I would absolutely love to check out Silence, because I do still really like sport climbing. This is the thing, when I look for the sort of future project as well, I'm not so bored about it just being a boulder. If it was a short route as well, that would be perfect too. I mean, I think one of my proudest achievements is the first ascent I did last year at Dumbarton, free at last. Just like, because that, I suppose it's like sort of almost 2 pitches that you climb continuously, and the first is like a 6B slab to a good rest, and then you do the sort of 9A plus head wall. But it's like 30 metres and you top out the crag. It's so good.
Dumbarton as well, I guess for any Scottish climber, holds a special place because of the fact that like Dave Mack, you know, it's like he basically
him
like
and Mauk just
honed his craft with
everything.
Mauk at Dumbarton, and that is like, it's like the crucible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. So that's the thing, I'm still super psyched on the routes, and I'd love to check out Silence properly. I mean, I've never been to Flatanger, so if I had the time, I'd be really psyched to try to get there soon. And seeing like Stefano's had 3 trips, I guess, now, and he's still like just trying to work away through the crux. It just looks ridiculous. And checking that out would be amazing.
Do you think you'd go Silence over Project Big?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like, to me, Project Big is not the sort of
Which isn't
style.
a project now. I guess we probably should be using it soon.
Yeah, BIG, I guess. But yeah, that's definitely not the style of route that I look for as much, because it's way more just endurance based. Whereas like Silence just looks like ridiculously hard
It's everything
moves.
based.
Yeah, like it'd be, I don't know. For me, that's the one I'm most psyched for.
So who's impressing you the most in the world of climbing at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think it always is going to. Can't imagine a time where it's not going to be like Andra still at the top. It's just every week it seems like another 9A on site, and then like I looked at Instagram yesterday, he's put up like another new 9B and a new 9A in the same day. It's just like, it's completely mental. But that's just like, I guess, what he's up to.
How's it been for you as hanging out and climbing with Adam Andra? Because
it's been amazing.
That's like climbing with God. You know?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Like, he's so psyched all the time for everything. So
you are too.
No. He is psyched on like another level as well. It's amazing. So yeah, every session I've had with him has been really, really good fun, and he's like super friendly and nice. Yeah, it's been a great time. And then I suppose when I was out in Burden playing with Toru, the Japanese guy, his footwork was just unbelievable. I was like, I need to get my technique so much better. Like, he was, he's climbing in socks and everything. I'm just like, oh man, like, he just climbs and sticks to the wall completely differently. It's amazing. More recently, I think the person that's impressed me the most is Jane Sivakova. Climbing with her in the Czech Republic has like been mind-blowing, because she's also been projecting Terra Nova, so we've just been having lots of sessions together. And she first ascended the sort of end half part Nova, which she originally graded 8B plus, and it's like absolutely ridiculous. So I suggested the upgrade to 8C. But yeah, it's like training with her, it's just every session, just learning so much from her. It's like super impressive. Yeah, it's been great.
So Will, thanks for joining us. The beard's looking great, and good luck with all the remaining 9As and beyond.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.